Om Sri Sai Ram. We offer our most loving pranams at the lotus feet of our most beloved Bhagawan. Welcome, dear listeners and viewers, to yet another Satsang here. It is that time of the year when a very important festival is being observed in Prasanthi Nilayam. And as always, Bishu and myself are here to join you in a Satsang. We are always in Satsang by Swami's grace. He is allowing us to think of him constantly, engage with devotees in the process of trying to be in Satsang. But it is always special to go through certain aspects about the divine literature when it comes to certain festivals. I recall Swami giving me this beautiful example of when God is omnipresent, why do we go to a temple? Right? That's a question that many people might have. We say that God is in every nook and corner of this universe, but still when we want to worship Him, we go to a temple or we come to Prasanthi Nilayam, an ashram. Swami gives this example that the blood in the cow is what becomes the milk. The blood flows through all parts of the cow's body, but if you want the milk, you have to seek the udder. And Swami gives this example. He said, when he was talking to a few youngsters, apparently Swami said, you could be in the middle of a market, you could be in the beach. You can think of Swami, but it is difficult. Right? Because our minds are worldly. Swami said you need certain spaces where if you are, it is easier to connect with the omnipresent Lord. If that is about spaces, something similar can be spoken about time too. 365 days of the year, 24 hours of each day. Each one can be made sacred the moment you start connecting with God. Right? So there is no time which is holier than the other. But having said that, there are certain times during the year where it is easier to contemplate on God. And one of those very important occasions is the festival of Shivaratri. And Swami often gives the example of why it is easier to think about God, contemplate on divinity and our own purpose of life during this period. Swami speaks about the various phases of the moon and how during the Shivaratri, in fact, every month has a Shivaratri. But this Shivaratri, which happens, Mahashivaratri, once a year, is very significant. And that is why, dear listeners, Bishu and myself are here to talk about a very important aspect of Shivaratri. Whenever we talk about the celebration of this particular festival in Swami's presence, Swami made it very special through a very significant event. And we are here to talk about that, not just about the event of, as you all must have guessed it, the Lingodbhavam, but the idea of the Lingam itself, the symbolism of the Lingam, if you could put it that way, and why Swami made this worship of a Lingam, that particular form, that particular symbol, a part of each one of our lives. And that is what we're going to be deliberating on.
Absolutely. And I think, as you mentioned, Swami made Shivaratri so special in Prasanthi Nilayam because I think perhaps after the birthday, Shivaratri was that event, when there were surging crowds, uncontrollable crowds in Prasanthi Nilayam, and everybody wanting to see the Lingam emerge from Bhagawan's being. And it was a spectacle. It was an unimaginable blessing that Bhagawan was conferring on every devotee, and that happened only on Shivaratri. And I think as the satsang goes, we will discuss why Bhagawan did this particular event, Lingodbhavam, and how through the Lingodbhavam, Bhagawan wanted our minds to be directed towards a particular direction. And as Prem was saying, this is that time of the year when easily you can connect with the divine. And Swami was making the whole process easier for us, expediting that whole process for us, for exponential growth in our spiritual journey. So it's really a blessing that we are here today discussing about Lingodbhavam. And my mind goes back to the early days of Prasanthi Nilayam, of how the Prasanthi Mandir came up, the first mandir of Prasanthi Nilayam, which is now called the Patha Mandiram. So all of us perhaps know, whoever has read Bhagawan's literature, that it was on Vaikuntha Ekadashi day on December 14, 1945 that Bhagawan inaugurated the Patha Mandiram. And before the construction of the Patha Mandiram began, there is this story of how when the place was being dug to lay the foundation stone, and there was this person, Guni Venkata, and as he was clearing the earth to make a sizable pit, that's when he was stunned to find so many bases of lingams.
Right.
So you have all the stone bases,
Pitams.
the pitams of the lingam. So you are finding the base of the lingam, and then they thought then the lingam should be anywhere around, and so they are digging all around the place to see where are those lingams, and they are finding more and more only the bases of the lingam, the foundations of the lingam, but they are not able to find any lingam, and that's when they go to Bhagawan and they say, Swami, what is this? We are only finding the pitams of the lingam. Where are the lingams? And that's when Swami very cryptically points at his own stomach, and Swami says, all the lingams are here. All the lingams are here. And nobody understood what Bhagavan mentioned. And for the devotees there, of course, it was like everything that Bhagavan does. It's like puzzle within an enigma, wrapped in a mystery, and that's what it was. But as years rolled on, just 2 years after that, 1947, when Bhagavan was with a group of devotees, suddenly on Shivaratri day, Swami started asking for more water, and Swami was with the devotees, but he was continuously asking for more water, warm water, and he was drinking, and they could see that pain in Bhagavan that we have seen whenever Lingodbhavam happens, those spasmodic struggle that goes on within, and that continued to happen. Devotees did not have any idea what was happening. Of course, Bhagavan in those days used to go in trance, so that was one thing that devotees are familiar with. So maybe something is happening, maybe he's going to leave the body and go somewhere, but that was not what happened. And suddenly, even as this whole process was going on, a lingam emerged out of a sudden, from Bhagavan's being. And that was the first time in 1947, just to a group of a dozen devotees, Bhagavan manifested the lingam, and Bhagavan was wearing a white robe, and it was for the first time that the world came to know about the Lingodbhavam phenomena, which we have only heard about it in scriptures. Now Sai Shiva, who was manifested in the Kali Yuga, recreated that act of divine creation. The place where Bhagavan is born was converted into a Shivalayam. Bhagavan was born on a Monday, which is sacred for Lord Shiva. Bhagavan himself announced that he is Shiva Shakti Swarupa.
Right.
And here in 1947, that act, which is so much a part of the glory of Shiva, happened. And from then on, Lingodbhavam became a part of the Sri Sathya Sai Shivaratri saga, and every year Lingam used to emerge from Bhagavan's being. So as you connect the dots, Swami said all the Lingams are here, and here one by one. And every year the Lingam that emerged from Bhagavan's body was different. It was different in size, different in composition, it was different in color. Sometimes it was gold, sometimes it was silver.
In Satyam Shamsun, there are many accounts: Spatika, gold, silver, marble.
Absolutely.
And of course, different names. Swami says Vishwalinga, Jyotirlinga,
Netralinga,
Brahmandalinga,
Brahmandalinga.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes
the numbers vary too.
Numbers, yeah. Sometimes it was not always just one lingam.
Right.
Sometimes it was 3 lingams that emerged in succession.
After the other.
Sometimes it was 5, sometimes 7. And devotees have narrated, they have been blessed to watch a Shivaratri when Swami created 9 lingams, one after another, 9 lingams. And devotees, they used to narrate, with pain, how there were occasions when the corners of Swami's lips would tear to bring out, those lingams. And Swami went through all that ordeal for the sake of devotees. And we will discuss that later. More about it, but that is how glorious Lingodbhavam was in those years, and so that continued year after year from 1947, as I mentioned. Let me take you to 1974. So 1974 was an occasion when Swami materialized this lingam, inside which was a trishul. And Swami said that you will find the color of the trishul change every 10 minutes. So it was a very, very special lingam, and Swami said the trishul represents past, present, future. It represents the three dimensions, the dimension of earth and sky, the dimension of netherlands, the dimension of space. So Swami, every time he created a lingam, he would explain the significance, and we saw every Shivaratri Swami would give 2 discourses. So from 1947 to 1974, we have published accounts, in public, Swami manifested lingams, and in fact on that occasion, 1974, Swami very clearly says, out of billions of people on earth, you should count yourself to be really, really, really fortunate to be able to witness the splendor of the lingam as it emerges. And Swami said, no greater fortune can befall a man than to be able to see this divine spectacle. And having watched this spectacle, having been part of this unique confluence of Creator creating this beautiful enigma of creation, live up to the blessing that you have been conferred with. Bhagawan makes that statement in 1974. So every year, Lingodbhavam has been such an indelible part of Shivaratri since 1947, and it continued till the mid-70s. After that, there was a lull.
Right. And Swami made it very clear. One pattern you can see in Swami's life, whatever decisions were made, it will always be connected to the welfare of the devotees. The frenzy around this festival, and you could imagine why that frenzy was there given what Swami had said. The remarkable blessing of being able to witness that. The crowds started swelling. It caused a lot of inconvenience, and that is when Swami said, I'm going to stop the public manifestation of...
Prasanthi was not as big as
absolutely,
what it is
absolutely.
now. I mean, Prasanthi, the ashram probably cannot accommodate
these and the stampedes that would have happened. And that is why Swami said the public Lingodbhavam manifestation is going to stop henceforth. But it did not really stop, because Swami would often say that the Lingodbhavam continued to happen, where Swami would go back after attending the Shivaratri, Akhanda Bhajan. In fact, one of the brothers who were in Swami's room, the larger explanation that he was giving is, when you are in Swami's quarters, when you're taking care of Swami's personal needs, one thing that he observed was, Swami would hardly ask for anything, even for his personal needs of, something as simple as a towel or a soap or a water. If you're around Swami, you have to be alert and sensitive to what Swami needs, and you'll have to take care of Swami. And one of the observations that he made during this period when we say that Swami was not actually doing Lingodbhavam was, the closer the days were going towards Shivaratri, Swami would start consuming a lot of water. And they would find that they had to replenish Swami's water as soon. And that is when they became sensitive to the fact that during Shivaratri, Swami needs 2 or 3 times more water than what would be usually kept. They would find that Swami's body temperature would sometimes go up closer to Shivaratri. And we have known, Swami would give specific instructions that don't come and take Pad Namaskar unless I instruct you to, especially during the Shivaratri time. So which means that though the Lingodbhavam as darshan was no more happening after 1974, as we've seen. In fact, even before 1974, when we were talking about the episode of Swami manifesting the cross for Dr. Hislop, that year Swami did the Lingodbhavam for Shivaratri on that riverbed, Bandipur forest, which later turned out to be a cremation ground earlier, and the significance of that is not completely lost too. So this public display of Lingodbhavam stopped because of the frenzy that was surrounding it, but the Lingodbhavam as such continued, And we all know how in the year 1999, Swami resumed it. I think you must have been around when that happened too, right?
Yeah, definitely. I clearly remember that occasion because I was here.
All of a sudden, right?
Yeah, all of a sudden, Swami suddenly asking for water, and you have only read those accounts.
Read about it. Yeah.
And and in fact, the people who were serving Bhagawan also, nobody had any clue. So generally there would be only one tumbler of water kept. Swami was asking again and again. I remember, there's so much of conversation happening because Swami was asking, little warmer, the temperature of the water. I think there were continuous instructions. They were running into the interview room to bring what Bhagawan wanted, and that whole exercise, when it went on and on, that's when you thought that, oh my God, again probably the scriptures are coming alive again. And Swami did not disappoint, and it was not announced, nobody had any clue. Out of the blue, as Bhagavan was sitting and as the devotees were singing bhajans, that time you got the clue that, so bhajan, Shiva bhajan started, Lingodbhavam bhajan started, and suddenly Swami jumps out of the chair, you could see that, as the Lingodbhavam, and it fell on the ground. It came with that much force. Tongue, that sound came also, you remember, and it was gold, pure gold. So, I mean, what a sight it was. And Swami mentioned, if you have had the opportunity to witness it, it is like being liberated from the cycle of birth and death. And it was indeed, what a blessing that was. And I think, again, the Shivaratri crowd started.
99
after
to
that,
2006, it went on. This, of course, is the Lingodbhavam, the manifestation of a lingam in a certain form. That is from Swami's being, where it used to rise up, Swami would say, and come out of his mouth. But the manifestation of lingam, if you really have to talk of that, that has been in many, many ways, right?
In fact, when you look at lingams as being a part of the manifestation saga and Bhagavan gifting the lingams for various purposes, lingam manifestations never stopped. Never stopped. In fact, even before we go there are so many beautiful ways and historic sites where Bhagavan manifested lingam.
Right.
And during some of his amazing trips, for example, you take the trip of Kashmir, when Bhagavan was in 1980 in Dachigam. It's a very beautiful, picturesque hill station in Kashmir. So Swami was with the devotees, and so they went and sat on a river bed, just like the sands of Chitravati, and Swami asked for a stylus and how he would play with the sands. So Swami took that stylus and Swami started sketching something on the sand, and a round motion, and in a touch here, a finish there, and something beautiful was coming. And people know that when Swami is doing that, probably something beautiful will emerge, because earlier Swami had manifested a statue of Narayana. So they were wondering what is going to come up. And as Swami was creating that beautiful artwork, he put his little cute hands into the sands, and out emerged a 2-inch crystal lingam.
Beautiful, sir.
Beautiful crystal lingam. It was the size of a duck's egg, and it was white, it was resplendent, and it was a time when the sun was also shining. So in the background of the sun, it was really sparkling. And everyone was wondering, what is this lingam? what is this wonder of the world? And then Swami reveals that this is the Amarnath lingam. Swami said, you probably will never have the opportunity to see this true lingam, which was installed by Adi Shankaracharya. You have to walk 20 kilometers in the ice to reach Amarnath to watch this. Even then you will see in the outside only ice. You cannot see this lingam. Swami said, this is the true lingam of Amarnath, which I brought it for your sake. And Swami later on gave it to Mrs. Ratanlal, who was looking after Bhagavan's entire trip. And the story and the lingams manifested in Kashmir does not end there. While that happened in June 6th, June 9th, again a very historic thing happened. Again, so Bhagavan was talking about Adi Shankaracharya, and Swami said, Adi Shankaracharya had installed a lingam of very powerful vibration at Chidambaram.
Okay.
Swami said. And Swami said, do you want to see that lingam? I can show you an exact replica of the lingam that is installed by Sri Adi Shankara at Chidambaram. Bhagawan went on to explain how Adi Shankara had received 5 lingams from Kailasha, from Lord Shiva, and he installed it in 5 important places of worship in India, in Puri, in Badri, in Sringeri, in Dwaraka, and in Chidambaram. So this was the Chidambaram lingam, and Swami said, it's coming, and it's come, and then Bhagavan shows this 3-inch round, black, glittering oval linga, and Swami, wiped all the sand around it with his white handkerchief, and as Swami was showing this Chidambaram lingam, there was such a beautiful glittering smile on Bhagwan's face, and then Swami said, it's all tamasha. It's all fun. I mean, for your sake, I can do anything. It was, and in fact, Mr. Ratanlal says that, Swami loved that trip to Kashmir because he was never, literally, virtually let his hair down, so to speak, because he loved,
nature,
the nature, being in nature and the small group of devotees. And so I think, so there were these occasions, when, as you said, the Lingodbhavam from Bhagwan's hand never ever stopped. Right. And talking about the lingam that Shankaracharya brought, as I said, one was installed in Badri, and when you read the accounts of Swami's trip to Badrinath,
right.
So there, in 1961, that golden
Netra Lingam, I think.
The Netra Lingam, yes. So Swami first manifests this 1,000-petaled gold lotus. Swami first brings out this lotus, and even before people could, express their awe in noticing, appreciating that golden lotus, out comes from Bhagwan's hand this lingam, this Netra Lingam. Netra Lingam, because inside that lingam you could see the eye, you could see a visible eye inside that lingam. And Swami said, this is that Netra Lingam, this is the lingam that has been associated with Badrinath. The Badri Kshetram has a lingam, and for centuries it has been worshipped, and that's when we know how Bhagavan manifested a silver vessel with Abhishekam water, and Swami did this Ganga Jal Abhishekam into that lingam. It fell onto that silver plate, and then Bhagavan created 108 bilva leaves, golden bilva leaves. He created 108 tummi flowers, fresh with morning dew. With these flowers, and even as all these devotees around Bhagavan, Kasturi Garu and Bhulgal Ramakrishna Rao, they were chanting, Narayana Suktam, Purusha Suktam, Sri Ruddham. Bhagavan himself did the Abhishekam, and that Tirtham, that Abhishekam Ganga, Swami again personally distributed to every devotee present. So lingams, Bhagavan being the principle of Shiva, lingams kept emerging from Bhagavan's hands, Bhagwan's being, all through. Sometimes it was visible to us, sometimes it was not visible to us, sometimes we knew about it, sometimes we didn't know about it, sometimes it was in public, sometimes it was in private. But the Sri Sathya Sai phenomenon and the manifestations of Lingam have been inextricably linked all through the Sathya Sai saga, isn't it? And when we know of cases when Swami has created lingam for people to do daily worship, for people to get better in their illnesses, isn't it?
Absolutely. When you talk about these kind of lingams which have been installed by someone of the stature of Adi Shankara, you look at them with awe and you look at them with reverence. And knowing Swami, we always feel that reverence creates a distance, right? But when you talk about Swami gifting lingams to individuals, which is plenty, the stories are plenty. I remember meeting a devotee who came to Swami in the 60s, to whom Swami had gifted a lingam, and Swami said, do Abhishekam every day, and any sick people who come to your home, you can give them. And he had so many stories of people being cured of incurable diseases merely by consuming the waters of that Abhishekam. In fact, there's this very beautiful story which one of the old students narrates, Swami was sitting in Trai Vrindavan and the students were all around him. Swami looks at this one particular student and Swami asks the warden, which floor in the hostel is this boy's room situated? And the warden said, Swami, he stays in the 3rd floor. And Swami said, no, you bring him down to the ground floor, let him stay in one of the rooms in the ground floor. And Swami said, can't you make out he's weak? He shouldn't climb up 3 stairs. The boy was also a bit surprised. And then Swami told the warden and the other teachers, this boy has a problem with his heart. And now this boy was startled because he had not been diagnosed officially with any heart problem and he was probably a bit scared. And instantly Swami noticed that and Swami said, no, you don't worry about it. Swami is there to take care of you. And I'm just giving instructions that you should be taken care of. And then Swami waved his hand and materialized a beautiful translucent lingam. And Swami said, you take this, you do abhishekam and take the water every day, you will be fine. The beautiful part is, then Swami showed the lingam to all the students around and Swami said, you look carefully. And when they looked at it, inside there was actually a structure like the heart.
Oh, wow.
Right? And they said that they could see veins going away from the heart and going towards the heart. And Swami said, you can see, these are the veins, this is the heart. And in that heart, right in the middle, there was a black spot.
Oh.
And Swami said, that is the problem the boy is having.
Oh, wow.
Right? And Swami gives it to that boy and Swami says, do abhishekam and take that water. And immediately the next moment, Swami says, abhishekam means don't worry. It's not like a elaborate ritual and all that. Just take the lingam, take little water. Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram and drink that water.
Wow.
Right? As I was saying, in one hand you have these beautiful historic pilgrimages Swami made to kshetras like Badri and there the elaborate puja with which that lingam was introduced to the devotees gathered
Dwarka,
there,
Somnath,
right? In all of these places.
Yeah,
On the other hand, Swami makes worship so dear and so simple for us that He is your Lord, right? I'm giving you a manifestation that is to remind you that here is the Lord to be loved, right? In the name of rituals and in the name of elaborate worship. It is not wrong, but don't distance Him.
Yeah.
As simple as, Swami saying, just say Sai Ram and pour water
Yeah.
and drink that. And needless to say, I'm sure that boy would have been completely cured of his condition. But any number of devotees like this, in fact, there are many, many Sai centers and samitis to whom Swami has gifted a lingam and Swami said, put it in the altar with similar instructions that anybody has health problems, they can take the water after Abhishekam. So, the variety. One is the Lingodbhavam itself. The other is the Lingam manifestation, which is in so many types and varieties. And the stories associated with each of these lingams. In Satyam Shivam Sundaram, there is a beautiful episode of a devotee, I think from Mysore or one of these towns, when Swami asks him, do you perform the Sandhya Vandanam? And this devotee says, Swami, I've been initiated, but I've kind of lost track of that habit. Swami says, do it, it is good. So he promised Swami, he said, Swami, you are saying I'll definitely do. He goes back and he starts religiously following the Sandhya Vandanam, which he was initiated into as a teenager when Upanayana was performed for him. And he starts enjoying the worship. And he remembers that there actually was a lingam that his family used to worship for many generations, which had now become part of the, the different articles on the altar, but it was not worship. So he begins the worshipping of that lingam and he realizes that as he is worshipping that lingam, the color of the lingam changes.
Wow.
It becomes transparent and they're able to see a beautiful image of Swami smiling inside the lingam.
Awesome.
Not only for him, for whoever comes and sees that lingam, they're able to see the vision of Swami there. Just Swami rewarding a devotee who has taken up a worship which has been lost with time, right? So, any number of reasons for health, for blessing someone like this, right?
And in talking about rewarding a devotee, I'm reminded of Mr. Bordoloi, who used to teach English here for many years. Again, one of the devotees from the northeast, who came to Bhagawan in those early years and inspired so many into the Sai fold. So, in 1976, Bhagawan gave Bordoloi sir's mother a lingam. It was a Atma lingam. And Swami said, I am giving you this lingam because तुम्हारा भक्ति बड़ा है, तुमको ये बड़ा लिंगम देना है. Your devotion is very big. That's why I'm giving you this big lingam. I had preserved, it was apparently one of the lingams that had emerged from Bhagavan's being. Swami said, I had kept it for you and I'm giving you this because your devotion is really great. And how is her devotion great? Apparently, as a child, she loved to make Shivalingams out of the clay from the termite hill. So she would make these Shivalingams and she would do her abhishekam, she would do her worship. So as a child, she was very, very passionate about doing this worship to the linga. Make your own linga and worship. Even though her family deity was Krishna, Gopal, but for her, she had her own connection with the Shivalinga. And Swami said, because you had done that during your childhood and you had so much of love for the linga, this is a reward for that love for the Lord. And see how beautifully Swami rewarded. This lingam that she got, inside that lingam, you could see Balagopala.
Oh.
So Swami brought both the things together, both her deities of worship. And sometimes you would see Krishna, Balagopala eating a laddu. Sometimes you would see Krishna playing the flute. Sometimes you would see even Ram, Lakshman, Sita inside that. Sometimes you would see Lord Shiva in Mount Kailash. So you had different visions of the Lord inside that linga, and it was in response, it was a reward that she had herself not known, she had forgotten, it happened in her childhood. But as you said, it could be just to reward you. It could be to confirm your faith. It could be to bolster your devotion. So lingam has been always in some way to connect you to God, to heal you so that you can establish better connection with God. So it was that medium for you to become stronger in your faith, in your devotion. And with time, what we saw is Bhagavan institutionalized the lingam worship, isn't it?
Right. And you could see that one of the most important events in the recent past, if we could say that, is the Atirudra Mahayajnam, which was held in Prasanthi Nilayam. That lingam is being worshipped even today in the Prasanthi Mandir. In fact, even before that, probably not many know this, that the puja that happens in the Prasanthi Mandir, in the bhajan hall, is actually a worship of the lingam, which Swami manifested in the sands of Chitravati in the year 1958.
November 1958.
Right, November 1958. So ever since, that is the lingam which is being worshipped. We had an Atirudram in the city of Chennai, and that lingam is being worshipped regularly in Sundaram Swami's abode in that city. And as we said, Shivam is in the shape of a lingam.
Shivam is the shape of a lingam. In 1971, even as plans were being drawn, for the construction of Shivam, even before that, in the dream of Mr. Prasad Rao, one of the devotees of that era, Bhagavan comes in the form of a linga. So he sees Swami inside the linga. And that's when he gets the inspiration that this building should be in the shape of a linga. Then he goes to Bhagavan and says, Swami, should we make this in the form of a linga? Swami says, yes, get it done. Make a model. And then on the foundation day of Shivam in 1971, Swami calls Deshikachari, Mr. Raman Rao and Mr. Prasad Rao, and Swami tells them, come for the foundation ceremony with the lingams that I have given you. So all these people were blessed to receive the lingams that had emerged from Bhagavan's being. So Swami had given them the Swayambhu lingams to all these people for their worship. So Swami asked for these 3 lingams and Swami did a Trilinga Abhishekam. And then the foundation stone laying ceremony was done. So that's how Shivam was built. And when Shivam was inaugurated next year, 1972, Bhagavan created another lingam, and that is placed there in the Sanctum Sanctorum of Shivam, where daily worship is done. In Sundaram, Bhagavan's abode, in Chennai also there is a lingam. So you would find that, the lingam worship has been a part of the way to adore Bhagavan collectively, whether it is Prasanthi Nilayam, whether it is Shivam, whether it is Sundaram. And that is how once the Rudram chanting started in 2005-6, right? So that's when this whole process of connecting to Lord, propitiating the Shiva principle became a part of our daily prayer, isn't it?
Right. And it's very, very significant. The reason why the Lingam is worshipped, not merely in the Sai avatar, but the Sanatan Dharma itself gives a lot of importance to the concept of the Lingam. As we've been saying, that Swami has reminded us that to see the manifestation of the Lingam is very special. Swami has guided a lot of people, including I'm sure many of our listeners and viewers too, into the worship of the Lingam. Yes. We all are present in the Sai Kulunth Hall on the occasion of Shivaratri when the Lingabhishekam is done. In fact, talking about that, dear listeners, you can follow our various social media handles, be it the YouTube channel or our Instagram and all these. We are sharing different snippets of these Lingabhishekam that happens in the run-up to the Shivaratri. If you've not been watching that, you can go and see those things. Each one of that is significant. So Swami has led all of us into the worship of the Lingam in a certain way. So it is very important for us to understand what that Lingam symbolizes and what the worship of a Lingam symbolizes, and of course what Lingodbhavam stands for. The concept of the Lingam is very interesting, and if you really look at it, it is not a sphere, right? A sphere is different from a Lingam. A Lingam is an ellipsoid. And the difference is, in a sphere you have one center. An ellipsoid has two centers, if you could put it that way. You can't call it center if it is two. But there are two circles fused together is what generally forms an ellipsoid or that structure which we refer to as a Lingam. And it is said that it is the coming together of Prakriti and Purusha. So what we refer to as a Lingam is the precursor for the whole of creation. Right? If it is manifest, it is different. If it is unmanifest, it is completely different. But this is that state of before manifestation. So a closest symbol that you can think of for the Lord. In fact, in the later years, as you also mentioned, Swami would manifest a linga which is referred to as the Hiranyagarbha linga. Right? Swami would, it would be golden in color, it would be golden to look at, and Swami would say that this is the Hiranyagarbha linga. In fact, much before Swami started manifesting the Hiranyagarbha linga through the process of Lingodbhavam, Swami had materialized it and shown it to devotees in Kodai during some of the summer course programs. The concept of the Hiranyagarbha in the Upanishads is very similar to the concept of the linga itself, and that's the most interesting thing. In fact, one of the summer courses, Swami speaks about that. Swami says in the Taittiriya Upanishad, it is mentioned that the transcendental Brahman manifests in our worldly life, in our everyday experience, in three forms. Right? One is, Swami says, whatever you're able to see around you. The Virata, that is referred to as the Virata or Vishwa. Animate, inanimate, humans, animals, the hills, mountains, everything is divine. Right? That's why the Swami would make that statement, Sarvam Kaluvidam Brahma. Whatever you see, you turn around and you see is God. There is that beautiful episode of a devotee, a student asking Swami, when Swami asks him, what vision do you want to have? He says, Swami, he thinks the smartest thing to ask is, Swami, give me Vishwarupa Darshan because I can have everything in one hand. And very significantly and profoundly, Swami just points at the devotees who are standing around, and Swami says,
Swami is actually in the car, and Swami just opens the window and says, this is the Vishwarupa Darshan.
Swami said, Roz dekhta hai. You see it every day, but you don't realize. Which means, in everyday life, whatever you see, be it this table, be it these equipments around us, everything is divine. So Virata is one of the forms in which Brahman manifests and you are interacting with every day. Then Swami says there is Avyakrita. The Avyakrita is the unmanifest. Right? In the Purusha Suktam it says, 1/4 of that Avyakrita has become all that you see. Right? Padosya Vishwa Bhutani it says. So that Avyakrita is the unmanifest form. Interestingly, Swami says there is an experience of that also in everyday life, and that is what we refer to as the Antarvani, the voice of the conscience. Right? There is no form to it. When you say voice, there is no language to it. There is only a prompting from within, and Swami says that is the experience of the Avyakrita. The third one which Swami speaks of, or rather second in this, is what comes in between, which is referred to as the Hiranyagarbha. Between the unmanifest and the manifest. What comes in between is this Hiranyagarbha, which is actually that state before anything is completely manifest. And it is referred to as the Garbha or the womb.
Yeah.
And I think elsewhere Swami gives this beautiful example. The Avyakrita is like a virgin woman. The Viratha is like a mother who has a child in her hand. The Hiranyagarbha, as the name suggests, is like the mother with a child in the womb. Right? The embryo in the womb. When you talk of the embryo in the womb, you talk of any number of possibilities.
Correct.
It could be a girl or a boy. It could be a good girl or a good, otherwise. It could be the child that is born could become a talented singer, could become a very talented dancer, or it could become a sportsman or a sportswoman. Any number of possibilities.
It could be even a twin.
Right, it could be a twin. The number of possibilities are limitless when you talk about the state of something being in the womb, right? That is what Hiranyagarbha actually represents, right? That discourse, Swami makes a very significant point. He says all prayers which are a form of desire, which means you say, I want this to happen, or I don't want this to happen, or Swami, stop this from happening. Every prayer which is a form of a desire is actually addressed to this Hiranyagarbha aspect of God. Which means you are saying that any number of things can happen. I am praying that this one particular event happens. The simplest example you can think of is, imagine a student sitting and writing an exam. There are any number of possibilities. Pass or fail, A, B, C, D, or all those different grades that are possible. So if you look at that event of a student writing an exam, how do we tip the possibilities to that one possibility that is desirable to you? You do it through karma. Right? You study, you work hard. So karma is actually one of the ways by which you tip the probability of that one possibility towards what you desire, right? But life is always complicated. As I remember when we used to go for the board exams when we were in school, the teachers have grilled us through the year and they've really done really hard work on us, and they've ensured that we all have studied multiple mock tests and everything. We are just about to go into the exam for, writing the exam. One of our teachers is standing there and saying, this is Tirupati Prasadam, please take this. This is Kumkum from this temple, please take this. And what the teacher told us was very interesting. She told, see, you have done all the preparation, but you never know how the mood of the person who is correcting your paper will be. That is beyond the scope of your action, right? So that is when you actually bring in the divine element. So when you are actually, worshipping the Linga represents this Hiranyagarbha, right? That is why Swami says the Linga is the physical manifestation of divinity just as much as Omkara is the audible representation of Brahman. It's called Akshara Brahman, right? So there is no leg, there is no limb, there is no nose, there is no mouth to a Lingam. But you say this represents the divine. Because before manifesting into any form, the form that you have is that of the Linga. So when you worship the Linga, what it means is, I know that all possibilities are springing forth from this form, and I want this particular possibility, so I worship. Very interestingly, I was reading in this book called Divine Doctor, Dr. Sharda, right? She writes about this episode. There was this lecturer in the Vrindavan college, and his wife was diagnosed with uterine cancer, and she was the doctor in charge. So she comes to Swami and she says, Swami, this is what has happened. We have this devotee who's been diagnosed with this uterine cancer, and we'll have to work on it. So Swami asks her, what do you suggest? So she says, Swami, if you permit, I will do a surgery and remove the uterus. Swami says, all right, you do it. And then Swami tells her that the post-operative care, I will take care of it. So the operation is done. The patient comes back after the surgery. Swami calls the family for an interview, and Swami gives her a lingam. And Swami says, you do abhishekam for this lingam and consume that water. And by Swami's grace, this devotee is still alive 40 years later. If you really look at that episode, it is just this. There are multiple possibilities.
Yes.
When Swami says, do your best and leave the rest to me, it is this, that to a certain extent your karmas can dip possibilities towards your desirable outcome. And for the remaining, the worship of the Lingam.
God's
right?
grace.
And
Prayer.
so significantly that whole thing is there.
Yeah.
And that is what that Hiranyagarbha that Swami speaks about stands for. And in fact, the other definition which Swami would often give, the Linga stands for
Liyate gamyate iti linga.
Yeah, liyate gamyate iti linga, because everything comes from that linga. So when we do an abhishekam to the lingam, when as devotees we worship that lingam, what we are actually trying to do is, Swami, I acknowledge that whatever happens comes from you, and right now my mind desires this outcome, and I'm placing this prayer in front of you, and I hope you'll answer this. And that is why in the scriptures, Lord Shiva is always described as the Lord who grants whatever you ask. Right? Bholanatha we say. There is no discrimination of you're good, you're bad, you're asura, you're divine.
Most of the boons have been got from
Are
Bholenath.
always got from
Especially
Bholenath,
by
right?
the demons.
By the demons. And that's very, very significant because he is that container of all possibilities, and the discrimination of what you ask is actually given, is left to the devotee. That he doesn't say that I will tell you what to ask. I will give you whatever you ask, but be careful what you ask for. Right? So that is what it stands for. When you stand in front of Lord Shiva and say, he grants whatever I ask, it means that you have to be wise enough to ask for the right thing. Right? And the whole worship of Lord Shiva is this. Swami tells in one of the discourses a very beautiful point. He says, we are all scared of the Navagrahas.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody has that, oh, I have to do this puja, I have to see my astrology.
Yeah.
Swami says there are only two grahas which trouble you.
Yes.
And the two grahas are raga and dvesha.
Yes.
Like and dislike.
Yes.
And when we stand in front of God, be it in the form of a lingam or in front of a picture of Swami, and say that, Swami, I want this to happen. My child is going through this problem, I want this to happen. Swami, I am going for an exam, I want this to happen. It means you are presenting your raga and dvesha in front of Swami. And when Swami says that during the Shivaratri time, the influence of the mind is least, which means for this particular period of time, you can stand in front of the linga and say that I am not putting forth in front of you my raga and dvesha, but I acknowledge that since every possibility comes from you, everything is acceptable to me. I acknowledge that I might define something as good, I might define something as bad, I might say something is pleasant or unpleasant, but standing in front of you, worshipping you as a linga, I acknowledge that all possibilities come from you and all are acceptable to me. And when you do that worship, it's actually, as Swami says, that all manifestations come from the linga, but at the same time, all manifestations also merge in the linga, which means, instead of looking at the Hiranyagarbha and saying, I want something in the Virata, you have the option of looking at the Hiranyagarbha and saying, I want to move towards the Avyakrita, towards that absolute Brahman. So Lord Shiva is one who can give you anything that you ask for. If you ask for something in the Virata, he will give you. But if you say, I want that absolute, he is ready to give that also. And that is why Lord Shiva is Bholanatha, but also Yogeshwara. He represents that absolute detachment also.
While there is this concept in the Upanishads, what you explained, to keep it very simple for us, whether we understand this concept of Avyakta, Virata and Hiranyagarbha, Swami, to ensure that we don't miss this opportunity and we make the most of this sacred night, he simply said, keep your mind fixed on the Lord.
Right.
Don't keep, this is the time you do Akhanda Bhajans. This is the time, don't think about anything else. Don't spend the Shivaratri night, by being awake, engaging in any other task.
Right.
There is no use of being awake and, getting some other things done for your worldly life. That is not how you should spend the Shivaratri. Ensure that all your priorities, all your energies are focused in the right direction, because Bholenath, he is willing to give you whatever you want. So be careful about what you want. Go beyond want, so that you become one.
Absolutely. I think that is the opportunity which is there. As Swami would say, as we were talking about the role of karma in getting what you want, Swami tells in a discourse, do you realize that whatever you come to me for, you can actually get it by your own karma?
Yes.
Why not ask from me that which is beyond your karma?
Yes.
Right? And that is the shift which happens.
Yes.
See, when we are worshipping the Lord and when we say, I do my best and I'm leaving the rest to you, we are saying that I have put in my karma, I have also put in my worship, and I'm hoping the result will come. But when you are worshipping the linga for the ultimate, karma itself becomes upasana. The actions that you do in your everyday life now become a part of the worship that you offer.
Absolutely.
I have been put in a place, I'm going to do this work. This becomes my abhishekam.
Yes.
Right? This, as I think there's a very beautiful shloka, I'm not good at quoting that, where he says, where Swami also would quote that every day I'm walking around, I take it as pradakshina to you. Everything that I drink, I take it as
I take bath, it is
abhishekam to the lingam, right?
Yes, yes.
So then every karma becomes upasana, and there is just a direction shift.
Yes.
From worshipping the Hiranyagarbha to get the Virata, you're worshipping the Hiranyagarbha to understand that supreme principle which is beyond the mind otherwise. Right? So the whole idea is, through these desires that we have, Swami is actually turning us towards that desireless state.
In fact, I think that is the reason Swami mentioned why Lingodbhavam happens. Why is he doing the Lingodbhavam? As he said, Lingam is that representation of that unmanifest principle. I mean, Lingam is the representation of the cosmos and the creator. And it emerges from the navel. Om comes from the navel. And an Om, when you have the 7 chakra, the Swadhisthana chakra is at the navel. And if you look at the element associated with the Swadhisthana chakra, it is fire. So if you look at the fire element, it has the attributes of ether, sound, space, sound, and a form. Until fire, before fire, you have space, which does not have a form. You have ether, which does not again have a form. So only fire in the sequence of elements, when it comes to fire, that's when for the first time you have a form.
Swami says the subtlest of the gross,
the
grossest of the subtle.
Exactly. So when our elements acquire the attribute of form, that is where fire is placed, and our navel represents the fire principle. And as we were discussing, it is from the navel that the lingam emerges. It is from the navel that Om emerges. And in fact, we are talking about the mother's womb. The mother's womb, sage Yagyavalkya says, is the Agni Kunda. It is that source of warmth and life. So on Lingodbhavam day, you had Bhagawan, who was bringing forth the lingam from his own being, from the divine navel. And what was he doing? He was, so to speak, melting all the gold. Swami says that you are Bangaru. There is as much gold in me as it is there in everyone. In everyone's body, our bodies consist of all those precious metals. But it was the purity of Bhagavan's being that he was able to melt all that gold and bring it forth in a crystallized form. Professor Venkatraman used to say that to melt gold, it will need 600 degrees or more. I mean, very difficult to melt gold. And that's the reason why probably Swami is continuously asking for water, So Bhagavan did this act. Swami says, I did it to let you know of the immensity of the blessing you have been conferred with. It's not every time that the divine is there in your midst. You miss the moment. You're not understanding the profundity of what you're getting. Why are you have got diamond on your palm. You're treating it like just simple sand particle. Don't do it. I'm doing this so that you realize what fortune you have got and make use of this opportunity to overcome all those tendencies. Though Swami says, I have to do this so that the forces of good are encouraged and the forces of hatred and irreverence and all those forces are overcome. easily by you. And so that was the whole purpose of Lingodbhavam. One thing that Bhagawan has mentioned, and when I look at the whole spectacle of Lingodbhavam and imagine those scenes of Bhagawan creating the Lingam, it's always while you are happy that you are witnessing such a divine event, but there's so much pain because Swami's body was going through so much pain, and you say, Swami, it's okay, don't do it, Swami, because we can't see you go through so much of convulsions, and it is million times what a mother goes through. And here Bhagawan was doing it year after year, and it was really a heart-wrenching sight, to speak. And to me, it felt like, here was the Lord sort of crucifying himself. It was like Jesus crucifying himself to save the world. Here was the Lord, undergoing so much pain to purify us, to elevate our beings. And Swami himself mentions that I am doing this just so that you understand also that for anything worthwhile in this world, you have to sacrifice. Here the Lord himself is sacrificing. I don't think, when a child is born, only after 9 months of pain that a mother goes through. Nothing worthwhile, for little things in the world, we have to strive to get a promotion, to get a particular, earn a vacation, whatever you do, put effort. But here we are asking for the highest joy, we are asking for the ultimate. So for that sacrifice, without sacrifice, you cannot attain that.
Right.
And I think that is a very, very powerful lesson that Bhagavan also gave during Shivaratri. So let us make use of these opportunities. In fact, just so that we can ruminate on these teachings, we have been sharing on our official channel, Sri Sathya Sai official, our YouTube channel, little snippets of Bhagavan's discourses. So, this morning we have shared, what is Kailasham. We are recording this on the 7th of February, just so that, we have time to ruminate on these teachings. So, from 7th till 18th of February, every day we will be sharing one snippet of Bhagavan's discourse where Swami is explaining why Shiva is adored as Samba Shiva, why Shiva is called as Shubhankara, how the Shivaratri night should be spent. So, there are so many beautiful messages that Bhagavan over the years has given, and we've been trying to make little capsules of it. And also you will find posters where we are constantly trying to reiterate the messages that Bhagavan has given during Shivaratri. So we have 11 days more, even as we speak, and this will probably be shared with you on a Thursday. But let us make use of this time, and let us ensure that this Shivaratri elevates us. Your final words, Prem.
Finally, talking about the importance of Shivaratri, and we started off by saying how that period of Shivaratri, especially Mahashivaratri, Shivaratri happens every month, as Swami would remind us in his discourses. But this period of Shivaratri, there's another discourse which Swami was giving to the students where he said that, whom we refer to as sages were actually scientists. And scientists in the sense that they had a very scientific approach to their study of what was around. And invariably their important material of study was themselves. That through the year they kept observing themselves, and they found different times of the year when the mind is very clear. That's how one of the Uttarayanam being important is one of the reasons. And they found that like these periods in a month and specific periods in a year, where the mind is so much more calm and still, and it is very easy to shift its focus on something. When Swami would make the statement that the moment the lingam emerges from the mouth, to see that is very, very special. And whoever has seen that does not have a rebirth. This, I think, a blessing only Swami can confer, and no one can challenge it. But when you look at it philosophically, what Swami was saying is, Swami would make the statement, when I say see, it is not merely seeing through these eyes, it is seeing through the jnana chakshu, or the comprehension through the mind's intelligence, or the eye of wisdom. So if you really look at it, Swami is saying to acknowledge that this idea of a lingam, this idea of a Hiranyagarbha, which is a collection of the various potential possibilities, emerges from me. It means standing in front of the Lingam, and as we are going to perform the Lingabhishekam in our own homes or going to witness the Lingabhishekam, it is standing in front of Swami and saying, Swami, I acknowledge that whatever can happen in my life, it only comes from you. Whatever event is going to take place is only coming from you, and I acknowledge that. To acknowledge that, I think, is that seeing through your eye of wisdom the fact that the Lingam is emerging from Swami. And going back to the idea that during certain times of the year this is easy, and the fact that Swami said, I'm doing this so that you're aware in whose presence you are, or whose presence is made available to you in your life. I mean, when we look of the journey of the soul, it must have lasted so many thousands of births. Just like how we have so many thousands of days within a lifetime, this soul must have gone through so many thousands of lifetimes, right? If you look at it that way, for us, this one birth is that Shivaratri night.
Yes, true.
Right? When we have been made aware whose presence we are sitting in front of. If we can turn our mind towards that Lord's feet in this lifetime, instead of standing before Him and saying, Swami, give me this, give me that. I don't think as devotees any of us has the authority to tell another person, don't ask this from Swami. But I think the wisdom suggests that when He is here to give that ultimate, it really makes no sense to stand in front of Him and say, Swami, please give me this little, this much. Because if you get that, everything else is got.
Right. What you mentioned is so powerful, because just like Shivaratri is that auspicious time, in our series of births, this birth is very auspicious because we have known Swami, we have experienced His love, some of us have seen Lingodbhavam, others we have seen videos of it at least now, we are reading about it and we are experiencing Bhagawan in our lives, and I think that is, this is the Shivaratri birth for us, and let us ensure, as Swami said, live up to the blessing that has been conferred on you and ensure that it becomes, just like the Akhanda Bhajan at Shivaratri, a ceaseless saga of contemplating and relishing the glory of His name, His form, His bliss, so that you don't exist anymore and what exists is only Shiva. Thank you so much.